because genuinely, our fans are the best. We meet them all the time, and they're just so interested and so lovely, and they're so involved in it, and they know even more than we do about it, because once episode 28's gone out, I've basically forgotten it. I'm on to the next one, and they've watched it 3 or 4 times.
Welcome to Tales from the Top. So many are striving for success, but how do you define it? What's it really like, and what happens when you get there? Join me, Lee Gray, co-founder of Kyron Audio, creators of Ultimate Home Music Systems, and my co-host, Jade Devison, founder of Devison Design, creators of unique luxury environments, as we celebrate the lives and achievements of those who have dared to dream big and have reached incredible heights. We delve into what drives them now, the new challenges that they face, and discuss the unexpected tales from the top.
Richard Brunning is the co-creator and co-host of the YouTube sensation Project Binky. He is former UK national karting champion with many years racing experience in single-seaters and GT cars racing in UK and the USA. In 2013, along with his co-host and old school friend Nick Blackhurst, the pair embarked upon the ambitious project of fitting a Toyota Celica GT4 running gear into an Austin Mini and creating a YouTube documentary in the process. 7 odd years later, they racked up a staggering 45,948,905 views. That is, of course, just off now. Bad Obsession Motorsport's Project Binky is a story of mechanical genius, obsessive detail, and endless possibilities. And we're thrilled to welcome him to Tales from the Top. Richard, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much for having me. That's quite the intro.
Well, firstly, congratulations on the success of the show.
Thank you.
And what is broadly acclaimed as being a refreshing change from the usual run of restoration shows that take an incredibly dilapidated car and in 3 episodes turned it into a stunning showroom special. I'd like to kick off with your background and where the interesting cars came from and how you met Nick.
Wow. Well, okay. So my interest in cars it can be traced back to my father. One of my earliest memories is going round to his friend's John's house on a Sunday morning. I think I was aged 4. This is a real
dark
blast
memories
from the past. No, because I remember "Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick" by Ian Dury and the Blockheads was on the radio. So it must have been 1979. So I was 4, and my dad used to restore vintage commercial vehicles with John. They had loads over the years. They had a 1923 Model T Ford bus. They had a 1936 Leyland Badger. They had a 1950 Atkinson 8-wheeler. They had all sorts of stuff. So I used to go on a Sunday morning with Dad and just sort of, play the fool, just hang out being a kid.
Yep. Yeah.
And then I got into radio-controlled cars. I love building radio-controlled cars. I love racing them. And my dad and some of his friends, or my school friends at the time, we created our own off-road 1/10 scale track at a bit of land that we re-rented. And then I moved into go-karts when I was 12. But when I was 12, I met Nick at school.
Right.
He was a school friend. And we had both had a love for cars, and we both had a love for music. We have the same taste in music, same taste in cars, slightly similar taste in girls. So that came a little later. So Nick and I go back a very, very long way.
Yeah.
But yes, cars and automobiles and engines and getting oily and dirty is definitely my dad's fault.
Excellent. Yes, like I think I will be guilty of doing the same thing. My boys are the oldest one is into cars. He has a 74 Mini, and we're
lovely.
just working on that at the moment, getting that back on the road for him, finishing that off. And my youngest son is deciding on what he's going to get when he drives. So it's that. That process of getting kids involved at an early age can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how their budgets go and what their wives say when they have to try and explain why they just drained the bank account and how it is that those 4 boxes just turned up at the back of the workshop.
It's an old one, isn't it? I was racing at Silverstone a couple of weeks ago at the Silverstone Classic.
Oh, great! Yes.
And it was my girls. I got twin 7-year-old girls, and It was their very first ever come to a racetrack, and it was a massive event with all the bells and whistles. And I don't know whether they enjoyed the racing, but they loved the being there. So
yeah. Do you think you're going to get them into karting or some sort of motorsport, or do you think that's inevitable, or you're going to try and avoid it?
I'm not going to try and avoid it. One of them has expressed an interest in trying it. I took them to a go-kart track a little while ago on just a club meeting just down the road to get the smells and the sounds and to see if they've got an interest, because if you want to share stuff with your kids, you've sort of got to be interested in it. It's much better doing it that way. So if they've got an interest in it, then I'll probably pursue it. If not, then I'm not going to push them that way. It's entirely up to them.
Yeah.
I remember falling in love with motorbikes, going to Butlins with my parents when we visited all our family in England. And, I was only 7 years old, and it was on one of those little 30cc motorbikes.
Fab. Yeah. Would have somewhere. I've fallen off those.
Yeah. Yeah. Butlins. I hadn't thought about Butlins.
Where's Butlins?
It's a sort of holiday camp. There's quite a few around the country, and we've been there. The girls absolutely loved it because it's basic.
Is it still going?
Gosh, yeah. It's set up for kids.
Wow. Yeah, far out. I got my first car when I was 14 as well, so I think it just sets you up for a love affair with cars for your whole life, doesn't it? Once you've got in there.
I think once you've been bitten, there's not a lot you can do about it.
No, the bug is. I've definitely got the bug as well. I have been involved in restoring cars since I was about 14, and my family are very enthusiastic about it. I disappear into the garage. My wife's a shed widow, but life's good. Life's good. So, Bad Obsession Motorsport and the idea behind Project Binky. Where did that come from? How did that all come about?
Cool. Two different questions. Bad Obsession Motorsport as an entity was dreamed up, I think it was 94. There's a photo of me racing a Formula Vauxhall Junior.
Yep.
Back years and years ago with Jim Russell Racing I think it was at Donington Park. And that was the very first time we'd ever put a sticker on a car with Bad Obsession Motorsport, and it was in script. And it was, we were 19 years old.
Yeah.
The Bad Obsession comes from we're massive Guns N' Roses fans,
right?
So Bad Obsession is off is a track off one of their albums, and it's just a joy. And we just sort of named it after that. But so Bad Obsession Motorsport was essentially, it was a way for the two of us to get trade tickets to go to the Autosport International show. That's how it started. In all honesty, and then. We did our own thing job-wise. I moved to the States in 99, and then I came back in 2003. Nick was rallying. I ended up sitting next to him as the navigator.
And you were racing over in the US at that time, I presume?
Yeah. And then come back and then sit next to him as a navigator because I was one of the only ones stupid enough to actually, sit next to him. We did well, but that was kind of fun. But the Mini came about. Nick had done a couple of conversions for people. He'd built what's called the Mixo for our friend Tony, who did the painting on the car, by the way. Tony's.
Yes,
he did a nice job.
He sorry about that. That was let's turn that off. He put a Citroen Saxo running gear in a Mini.
Citroen Saxo. If you could tell our viewers, and that's a code for I'm not sure what that is, what the Citroen Saxo is.
Citroen Saxo VTS. So it's a little front-wheel drive sort of city car. So it's
okay, 1.3 litre or something like that.
1600, about 100 horse, 120 horse. They were. It's
quite respectable.
Yeah. It was quite a nice little thing, and they go really well. The Saxos themselves are way less than a packet of crisps, so they do go quite well. So he basically transplanted all of it, including the disc brake rear end and everything. And it was a really nice conversion, but looked just like a Mini. No difference there. It had a flip front, which was not brilliant. That wasn't one of Nick's. Nick did all the subframe and all that sort of stuff. The bodywork was done by somebody else. But that was a terrific thing. And then he also did a turbo conversion on a Mini, but the Metro turbo engine conversion in a Mini. And those two people both said they had the best Mini. And Nick disagreed. And he said, well, no, that's definitely not the best Mini. I can do the best Mini. Meanwhile, while he was going to work one day, a bus decided to park in the back of him in his car. He was turning right into his place of work off the main road, and a bus smashed in the back of his Toyota Celica GT4.
So it turned a 4 meter long Celica into a 3.5 meter long Celica.
Oh, probably closer to 3 meters.
Wow.
Yeah, the rear bumper, the front bumper of the bus was basically to the back seat, to the front, the back of the front seats, and Nick was quite badly hurt.
Was he injured?
But that wrote that car off. Now, Nick being Nick, he repaired it, brought it back after it was written off, repaired it and put it back on the road. But it wasn't brilliant. Meanwhile, another friend of ours gave us a Mini, the white one that you saw, which ended up being Binky. So, Jack Daniels, one night, we decided it might be quite fun to try and put one inside the other. And that's how Project Binky started, as a concept.
Right.
Jack Daniels.
Curse the Jack Daniels. Would you do it again?
God, no. No, not to this extent. I mean, there will never be another. No matter what we do from now on, there won't be a project as difficult and as complex as this one.
Well, I think you've set the stage. Clearly, you've set the stage, and you've told the world, "Look what we can do."
Well, look what you can do, not us. Well, I mean, we're doing it, but it's just the whole point is that if you go about it a methodical way, you can do it too.
Yeah,
it's not. We're trying desperately not to say, "Well, look, this is how you do. This is how you do it." We're actually trying. This is how we do it.
Yeah,
other ways are possible.
And what's really good about the way you've done it is that you don't have ultra high end machinery. You're doing it with. I think there are a lot of backyard mechanics now who have given it a go, and I'm hoping that they can all still count 10 digits between two hands, using a 4-inch grinder to do their sheet metal.
It's like the third person on the show, isn't it?
The grinder, the scarecrow, it is. It's never too far away. The grinders have changed over the years, but they're still grinders. But the point we've got a nice. You can't see most of the shed, thankfully.
Yeah.
But the bits that we show you, they literally are what you see. There's nothing special about any of it. We were very, very lucky to get
the old lathe.
SIP on board, and they sponsored us with a ton of stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
But it's all standard stuff. None of it's particularly high end. Oh, I don't mean that disparagingly. What I mean is it's not out of the way.
Yeah, it's affordable mid-range machinery that now it's machinery that you could probably argue that you really needed to have it when discussing that with your better half and deciding that I need this in the workshop, and once I finish I can go and make a couple of other things and pay for itself, and you could delude yourself into thinking that that's what. Now, of course, I don't do that. I've never done that.
No, of course not. No, you wouldn't. That would be bad.
That's right.
But yes, we try and bring it. As brilliant as my colleague is, we try and show how you can do it, and if you keep practicing, because we're both self-taught essentially.
Yeah.
Yes.
None of it was so we taught ourselves by getting it wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're trying to give permission to people to get it wrong, and we show you when we get it wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, the honesty of the show, which makes it so wonderful. I mean, well, it's just one of the incredible elements. That they're all very subtle. And even when you talk about your tools, I love the way that you just bring in like the Digiplas spirit level. I mean, how that takes off, make the noise.
Absolutely, that is the craziest thing, Lee. It was it was a throwaway comment when I was writing the script to that particular one, and there was it went to, and I looked at it, and as it was it was in the editing software as I was doing it, it went to 0, and there was this great big pause before it like beeped. And I sat there and I went, just make the noise. And that's how that phrase came about. And it took off.
Has DigiPlus come to you?
No.
Has DigiPlus come? Oh,
no.
you're kidding. Do they even
I have
know?
no idea.
Oh, you have
The
to.
have
number
no
of
idea.
sales,
Ridiculous.
the increase of sales in tea bags and digestive
Binky.
biscuits and
Yeah.
machines
You think-
that make special noises. If you're getting 1% of the potential market, and 40, that's 4.5 million.
We need an agent, Jay. We need an agent because none of that is happening. We're just 2 bell ends from Josh with a selection of
Are you aware of how popular it is, OS though? Are you got a good sense of it?
It's
these
hard
days?
to say. We went to the Historic Rally Festival last year, sort of this time last year, with the Mini, and
Yeah,
it
I
was
saw that one.
it was crazy. It was crazy the amount of people that came to see us, and we're doing it again this year. We're still taking the Mini. It's slightly less finished than it was last year,
brilliant.
which for reasons that will become apparent. But hey, look, these things happen. This is Bad Obsession Motorsport. You can't help it.
Yeah, I love it.
But no, it's a constant source of amazement. I can't tell you how odd it is for just normal bloke to be walking around Asda and then people just grabbing you while you're doing your shopping.
Well, we'll be chatting about it over barbecues here.
Yeah.
I was at a mate's 2 months ago having a barbecue, and you came up. He's like, oh, have you seen Project Binky? Are you kidding? I've watched it all twice.
Yeah, what the hell are they doing? Why haven't they had one out for 8 months? Yeah, what the bloody hell? Yeah, I know. We get lots of abuse.
How do you go with that? I mean, because I read through all the comments and stuff, and most of it is, oh, when's it coming? It's like people waiting for Tolkien's
That's
next
right.
book.
Yeah.
But all these things that are wonderful.
It's just really hard.
Can't be
It's
rushed.
just really hard because nobody is more acutely aware of the need to get this thing finished and the want and the desire for people to see it finished
And your
we
wives.
are. Quite. Absolutely, very much. But we've been taken out of our comfort zone. If you want to know what the story with the current delay is, then up until this point, most of what we've done has been relatively comfortable for us. Most of it has been stuff that we can do. Now, when it came to the instruments, what we should have been able to do, and what we tried to do, in all honesty, genuinely tried to do, we got hold of Smiths and we said, can you make us a set of matching gauges in your classic range for a Mini? One of which needs to be a boost gauge. And they said, yeah, no problem at all. So the boost gauge that they had in stock wasn't suitable, so they remanufactured it, and our friends at Competition Supplies sorted it out for us, and they made a batch, and they gave one to us. And we had all these lovely 6 gauges, and 5 plus the original one. We stuck them in, and they were great, except none of them matched. The new boost gauge is backlit by LEDs, and the other ones are backlit by the glowworms that you get in a standard Mini.
Yes.
None of none of it matched. And as you might imagine, my colleague didn't really like that.
Well, I probably I can share his frustration.
So the decision was taken to essentially we'd remake the faces, the bits that you see. So at least they matched. And then we thought, well, that's all very well, but with the rest of the Mini, what we tried to do is make an old Mini perform like a much more modern car. And having a dashboard that you can barely see. If you know Minis that in the dark, and it's dark for a lot of time around here, you can't see the gauges. You can't. They're crap. So I thought, all right, well, we can make this better. So short story long, we've basically made our own gauges using bits of Smith's gauges, bits of Peugeot gauges, bits of everything else. But what it's meant is that, unlike, as I say, we were very happy with how we were doing the other stuff because we knew how to do it. With this one, we've had to learn Arduino programming. We've had to learn electronics. We've had to learn
Yep.
other stuff. Now, lots of people have said, well, why didn't you just farm this out? This is ridiculous. Why is it taking you 8 months? It's absolutely ludicrous. Why didn't you just farm it out? Well, then you wouldn't learn anything.
And it also, it just moves away from the concept, the whole notion of the show. And the big powerful
the heart would
allure of the show is that you're not a 3-episode super restoration overnight success show. This is doing it properly. It's doing it so that we all get a genuine understanding. And
I would argue that people don't want to see it finished anyway.
No, if you
there is some of that. Yeah.
it's like finishing that great book. There'll be tears, and you'll be lost for weeks. I will be.
Yeah.
But if this thing, I mean, we're at the point now where we're filming again. Now we've got to the point now where we're actually we think we've sorted it. But so imagine the patrons know what we're doing. So what we've done is we've developed our own 3D printing to 3D print circuit boards.
Okay.
Wow.
Directly onto FR4 fiberglass using solder as the trace.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Wow.
So you set up your own print head to thermally 3D print.
Yes.
Great. Lee, I want you to sort out your 3D printer tomorrow, please, because we're going
to... no problem.
Well, what it means is that if I'll show you how you do it, or we'll show you how you do it.
Yeah.
So it means that your really small scale stuff, if you've got a cheap 3D printer, you could do it.
Brilliant.
There's a business in its own right.
Yeah.
So if for prototyping and for stuff like that, for hobby stuff,
that's incredible.
You can we're printing at 0.5 mil wide, at 0.2 mil tall.
Wowzers. Okay, well that's a typical kind of print, isn't it? Really. So, but you're doing it.
We're doing it in solder, in basically tin.
On solder. Right.
So we've developed this over the period. This is why it's taken so bloody long, is to actually try and get to perfect this.
And that's a flux.
We've never seen it done before.
Introducing external flux.
No flux at all, because
no
flux given.
So,
and
this is why the show's so great. It's those quick quips. It's like I love it. It's like make the noise. Last time I was watching. If I'm looking tired, it's your fault, Richard, because I got I've watched all the Binky ones before, but I hadn't watched the one with your little Citroen.
Oh yeah, the bargain raceman.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so much fun. I'm only up to episode 4 or 5, but it's the little things. It just makes it. I just love the whole British humour thing. But you're pulling off the dash and struggling with it, and then it's just there's silence, there's pause, and there's gorilla. You know what I mean? It's like, where does that come from?
When
it's those little things, and they're all the time, and it's just, it's so good. I mean, even my wife, not into this kind of stuff, she'll watch it.
Oh,
sometimes begrudgingly,
that's the thing.
but
I love the fact that guys like yourselves have been able to watch this almost with permission, because it's got enough for the layman and for the people that aren't really interested. It's just go, actually, that's quite funny, or that's quite interesting.
It really fits.
Well, and it's the vicarious.
It fits in with the whole notion. There are 2 TV shows now about two shows now about motoring, about obsessiveness with cars, classic and modern, that are entertaining shows in their own right. That the subject matter is not necessarily the thing that brings the entire audience. And those shows are Top Gear and Project Binky. My wife will enjoy both shows. I couldn't imagine non-car people sitting down and watching an episode of some of the American shows with the great clamour and the excitement and the fuss and of one episode per car.
Truthfully, that's the reason that this exists in the way that it does.
Yeah,
because we desperately we were just as frustrated by watching those as you were, and when we decided to just try something different, we thought, well, the only way this will work is if because we had no idea what we were doing, by the way, when we started. We literally had no idea what we were, it was just going to evolve and see what happens. But we desperately knew that we wanted to show the detail.
Yep.
So the trick was to try and show the detail in a way that's still entertaining enough to watch for half an hour or so.
Yeah.
Well, the pace is just you've perfected it. You know, so much of what we watch and we consume now, it's in, geez, I mean, if you get down to, you know, TikTok and things like that, we're down, you know, 1.5 seconds if you're lucky. And it's like, I kind of liken it to reading a book in a lot of ways. Is that from my field, listening to vinyl.
Yep.
You know, that ability to slow down the whole tea ceremony of the process and then actually appreciate all of the little intricacies that go into it. And it's like, I was thinking about it last night, it's almost like 60s movies. You know, you watch, you know, The Italian Job or stuff like that, and there's these long pregnant pauses sometimes, but it's great because it's that anticipation, and you're not going, you know, things coming at you a million miles an hour. And you get to see
it. Thomas Crown affair. It's the same thing with those the creative long shots and the beautiful moments of silence where you do get to appreciate the scene, and I think that's exactly what we're getting when you get the funk out. Speaking of funk, tell us about the funk.
It's another one of those. It's a make the noise thing again. It was. I think the first one was in episode 3. I can't remember. I didn't. Was it 4? Was it? Great, thank you. I can't remember, but that was very.
You wore red. No,
but there was a. It was a way of. It was simply a way of trying to show the process of a fabrication or a machining with again, succinct enough for it to be interesting, but long enough for it to show the process. But you can't talk over it all. I haven't got anything to say over it. So how do you make it?
You end up becoming an anorak, don't you? A bit of a party bore if you spend 4 minutes describing how the cutting blade is moving into the aluminium and the cooling fluid is
it's already there.
The heat out.
Yeah.
You didn't do, and it goes on.
No, I'm not averse to that. I can do that with the best of them. But it was just not going to happen. I can't write this. So I thought, okay, well, let's have a music montage.
Yeah.
And again, as a sort of an editor who started this, I'd never edited anything in my life before. So so developing my skill set and trying different things. The Get the Funk Out was like, you know, I'm a big Extreme fan. So, you know, it's so one of their songs is Get the Funk Out. And I thought, well, Nick gets on with that. I'm going to get the funk out. And trying to pick a funk montage that fits nicely and then cut the scenes to fit the music, and it just became it's almost a trope in its own right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so would you have more mainstream stuff if rights were a thing? Would you have some James Brown and Meters going?
Yes, absolutely. Because, you know, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because it's great.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're subscribed to Epidemic Sound, who have some terrific stuff out there, and we even got I don't know, you might have seen if you've definitely watched it all. One of them features a band. We'd seen them on YouTube, and we went, "That is no, beg your pardon." They contacted me and said, "Would you like some of our stuff? Here's our YouTube link.
So good.
Check it out."
Yeah.
And I fell in love with that song that I played, and I forget, they're from Denmark, I think, and we said, yeah, sure, can we use that one? And they said, yeah, sure. So I said, well, in return, we'll show you a bit as well on the screen and this, that, and the other. So and that was kind of nice.
Brilliant.
But
we've done the same with our show. We commissioned ours actually starts with a funk track from an Australian band.
Now that's some of your main, definitely.
Yeah.
But we're both sort of blues rock mainly. But I do like a bit of funk, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to ask a bit more about that. So you mentioned Guns N' Roses earlier. That was during your teens, I guess, was one of those formative. I think we're pretty similar in age. You're 46, 45, same as me.
47. It was very much, you know, big hair bands in the 80s when MTV started to come across. You know, it was Poison, Rat, Warrant, you know, all of those stuff, and you sort of. My dad listened to Queen, and we listened to Queen in the car, and we sort of grew up with all that sort of stuff. Yeah, Bon Jovi, of course. We went to see Guns N' Roses just a few weeks ago in London. Unfortunately, Axel
that?
couldn't sing. Unfortunately, he wasn't well. So Slash absolutely held the thing together. He was amazing. We went to Germany in '93 or '94 to see them. Me and Nick. But so music-wise, we're very similar. But I love the blues. I love the blues. I love well, anything. See, I even as far as like, I love some hip hop and even some classical. I grew up. My crazy old headmaster as a primary school, he used to make us listen to classical music, and
Excellent.
so I've got a love for that as well. But my main love is blues rock, and at the moment, just to stick it in there, Joe Bonamassa's latest album, Time Clocks, is absolutely amazing.
I'll check it out.
It's just something else. I'd love to listen to it through some of your speakers because they are stunning.
Yeah, bring it on.
So
anytime you're here, man.
You need to come here and have it.
I
I think
would love
Binky
to.
needs to be Binky episode 42, episodes down under.
Well, we'd like to. 42. 42 is the number. Obviously, it's the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
That's right.
So we thought we might stop at 42.
The answer
Douglas
is, it is. All right, so that's okay. We'll have to sign you up for Binky Does Australia. Or around
Well,
Australia.
we've been invited by Marty Amuga invited us over, so we are definitely going to take them up on that.
Wow. So when that might be? Who knows? 7 years time.
Who knows? But yes,
when the car's
hopefully
finished.
sooner rather than later. But yes, they've invited us over, and we've had Al and Woody on from the Skid Factory. I loved that section when we did with those guys. That was so cool to do. To edit and to have that done, it was if you didn't, it was so subtle. I loved it. It was just a really nerdy thing to love, but I loved doing that. So yeah, hopefully we'll definitely get down under. Can't wait. We're definitely going to do that.
Today's episode is sponsored by us, Kyron Audio and Devison Design.
At Kyron, we enrich people's lives with music systems that create lifelike three-dimensional images that evoke real emotional responses and allow true connection to recorded music. With our strategic partners, we can help you create the ultimate environment to enjoy your Kyron Music System. From interior design guidance through to an entire bespoke listening room, we can assist you to bring your dream to life. Life is better with music, and music is better with Kyron.
Devison Design creates luxury garage environments for the discerning automotive collector, preserving your collection in surroundings that are more gallery than garage, and so enhancing the value of your enjoyment. With projects across Australia and Europe, Devison Design provides design services worldwide. Truly bespoke garages start with inspiring designs. Let Devison Design inspire you.
To get in touch with one of our principals directly, visit our website kyronaudio.com.au or devisondesign.com.au to book a consultation.
And now on with the show. Right, we have some great race circuits here. We have a recent
Yes, you do.
construction here is the Taylor-Bed Motorsport Park, which is second longest racing circuit in the world now. Second only
Is it really?
Nürburgring. Yeah, a very high quality circuit. Lots of really good responses from that.
What's it called?
Taylor Bend Motorsport Park.
But anyway, Adelaide Hills, that's where you need to be going.
Absolutely. The
You don't need to go to a racetrack.
Rally is, the Adelaide Hills Rally, which is been going for about 30 years. There's normally anywhere to 400 cars that come from all around the world to race on the circuits. The motorsport is very big in Australia, as it is in the US.
That's huge here.
And the classic movement is massive here in Australia. We have more classic cars per head of population than anywhere else in the world here in Australia. Typically, because we haven't been able to afford to buy new cars since 1964.
They rust and ship on the way out.
Yes. Yeah. I have a massive love for Australia, and Nick's got family there.
Has he? Whereabouts?
I don't know.
Whereabouts?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But he does, yeah.
It's a small place.
yeah.
We've got some friends. Yeah, it's only a little place. I'm sure you one end to the other, no problem at all. But yes, we are definitely planning to bring it over and come and do a tour. Hopefully.
Well, we'd love to host you when you're here for a part of it, which would be great.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Now, technical.
So,
after you, Lee. No, we're
go.
both so excited. We want to get all of our questions right.
Me. I was just going to ask about your experience experience as a presenter. I mean, did you do anything prior to this? Because you're ridiculously natural at it. If Binky was your first time doing this,
No, I didn't. I haven't had any. I liked a little bit of theatre when I was a kid. I did some
That shows.
a little bit of theatre, but nothing since I left school essentially. But so no, not really. No, I as you can tell, I like talking. And I
got a perfect radio voice.
I've got a face for it too.
Perfect face for radio.
Yeah, and again, it's what the Binky thing. When people meet us in real life, so obviously you don't use your voiceover stuff because the way that I try the way that I write the voiceover, it tends to be quite. There's a cadence to it, and there's a definite. And I didn't realise I did it until somebody mentioned it.
Oh. Perhaps that's the frustrated musician or poet in you.
It could be. Well, I'm a drummer, so that's. I say not a musician. Obviously, I'm a drummer.
Don't say that.
So
I take offence to that as a percussionist.
yeah, who's the bloke that hangs out with the musicians? Yeah, it's the drummer.
Yeah, drummer.
Yeah. So maybe that's something to do with it. But no, I had no experience whatsoever.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
I don't know where to go from that one now because somebody that just
Well, I
ruined it.
do. I think there's a future career there. I mean, have you been approached by others to do presenting or on other TV shows, commercial shows, anything like that?
No, I've got some friends in the industry. My friend Chris Pollitt, lovely bloke. He's Kyron Classic magazine. They do their own YouTube videos and stuff. And we're talking about a little project with him. I went down and helped him out with an Austin A30, getting that ready. That was kind of fun. We shot that a few years ago. But no, which we don't get anything over here. As I say, I need an agent.
Yeah, you certainly do. I mean, I can definitely see it as it's a commercial appeal. I mean, you're already kicking ridiculous goals. 47 whatever million views. That doesn't lie.
No, I mean, I wonder though that if you and I wonder if this is true that if you do go that commercial route, is that when the charisma starts to suffer for the show? Is that the potential where the accountants start to make decisions?
We're never getting an accountant to listen to our show. Every show you pick on accountants.
Well, understandably, I get that.
Well, the only reason I'm still here is because
I quite like my accountant. She's lovely.
Jade always backpedals every time when it gets to this point. Oh, I really like mine.
In fact,
really good.
one of my best friends is an accountant.
That's right. Yeah, I have loads of accountant friends.
Right,
Honest. We did early on. We did get approached by a production company from the States to do something different, and we actually recorded a sizzle tape. I've got it somewhere, but it's the commercial side of it doesn't interest us because people say, well, why don't you, would you like your own TV show? Well, we've got one.
And you probably rate better than all of them.
Well, this is the thing, when a Binky video goes out, we get more than the Formula One does live. So by some margin in the UK, obviously. So it's like why would I like to cede any control over what we do and creatively? Because I think we're okay at it creatively. I think we've got it okay, and it would be nice to have some better kit. Perhaps it would be nice to have maybe a better camera or two and some other bits and pieces, but which is phenomenally expensive to do. But essentially, the first, I don't know how many episodes, 10 or 11, was shot with a 500 quid Panasonic HD camera picked up from Curry's on special, and a Rode mic, the shotgun mic, and then now it's slightly evolved, and we've got some Sennheiser lav mics and some other bits and pieces because audio is the key to it. Audio is the absolute key to it.
Agree.
When you're watching a video that you can't hear or it's just extremely frustrating. So we said right from the word go, look, you've got to be able to hear it. So audio is key to it. But no, I don't think I'd want to cede anything. I enjoy what we do, and as long as we got as long as we can make a living at it, as long as we can pay the mortgage. We're not here for riches. I don't really care as long as I can look after my family. Then and go racing sometimes. That's really all that matters.
Is it your full-time gig?
It is now. Yeah, it wasn't for a long time.
Fantastic. That's great.
And the last few months have been somewhat lean because we're idiots and we didn't farm it out. Because we'd have finished it and be lying on a beach in Saint-Tropez somewhere now, sipping endless margaritas from the toes of a Italian. No, hang on, sorry, yeah.
No, keep going.
So Sarah's coming back later on.
This is a family show. The toes of a pineapple. Oh dear. Look, one thing I wanted to ask you, and we're getting back onto the commercial aspect. You've had some really good results with some sponsors, and you mentioned SIP before, and the Patreon. I watched the early episodes, and all the names had come down, and I'd read to see if mine was there, and that was impossible because I'm too tight and I didn't give you any. And
you there, Richard?
and then it went from you'd have each name coming down, you'd scroll them all through, and I thought everyone's going to love that. And then it went to pages. How many Patreons do you have now? It must be it must be thousands and thousands.
Well, it's not because it isn't because what happens is that you get I don't know what they call it, but with Patreon you can pledge a certain amount as a maximum. So when you get to that amount, it drops off, or you can do one, you can do two. It doesn't matter. But what we decided to do was not drop anybody off that went from the beginning. So it's a cumulative total of everybody who's ever done it. That not necessarily is now.
That's okay, but that's still a huge number. There must be tens of thousands.
So it's about 4,000. There's just over 4,000 as it is at the moment. So current people. But you're right. It's tens of thousands over probably 10 at least. I would think.
Over 7 years. Yeah. And the other one, your other great friend of the show, Ed China.
Oh, Ed. Crikey, yeah, I was just talking to Ed, a friend of mine just over the road. We were walking the girls to school. I met him with my old job. Met him and Mike. They were recording one of their wheeler dealers with a Sirocco at a go-kart track I worked at. And I met them there. And I contacted Ed a year or so later because Nick and I sat together and said, wouldn't it be fun if we could get Ed China to come and sweep the floor? And I said, there's no way. I said, but I'm willing to give it a go. So I contacted him through Twitter, I think. Yeah. And anyway, so he remembered me from the go-kart track from Daytona, and we got talking, and he came up with his wife, Imogen, and he absolutely threw himself into it. Yeah. And we had a fabulous day because he's such a top bloke. Top bloke. I can't tell you how lovely he is.
I do like his.
So we've been friends ever since.
And so is he gave you some advice? He just came and swept the floors.
We talked about everything, metaphysical stuff.
Yeah.
The universe, life, and everything. He's a deeply, deeply intelligent bloke, and he does love a cup of tea. We've been friends ever since, and we've been talking. Actually, he's been on to us for advice about his YouTube channel because he was used to having the production company sort of out, of course. Yeah. So when it came to his own, he was at a loss. But of course, we'd got a bit of a head start on him on that sort of stuff. But of course, he got a head start on the name. Yep. He's Ed China for crying out loud.
Yeah.
So we got together on that, and hopefully we gave him a few tips and what have you. But we keep meaning to go down and shoot some stuff with him as well down at his place.
That would be very interesting. I think there's an awful lot of publicity about the breakup of the show, but I think it's great to see he's got the new show and his workshop, and he's a bit of a Range Rover fan, which I quite appreciate. So
I want to ask about Escargot. I think there's a few fans out there screaming. Yeah. Is there any news on that one?
Yes and no. I mean, we took the decision to concentrate on the Mini with regard to the detriment of absolutely everything else we've got in the shed. In as much as we still don't have an office or a toilet or anything because we've got all the kit or the heater. We bought a heater, a big massive heater to heat the shed this time last year, and it's still not up because we've just spent every waking moment tearing our hair out. But the escargot is sitting there laughing at us every time we walk in there. Yes.
Massive project, isn't it?
It is huge, and since then it's got even bigger because we're totally like, oh God, I can't even begin to tell you how ridiculous it is. But we've been collecting, we've put two different axles underneath it, if you've watched the first couple of episodes, because we're putting the DAF running gear on it. Well, we've got another axle, obviously, because, air suspension. So that's the next thing. We're going to put air suspension on the back, so we've got another axle. We chopped...
Could you... Sorry, just interrupt. Could you give an overarching, just for those that haven't watched the show, maybe, of what escargot is, what the plan is for it?
Escargot was, it's a 1985 Ford Cargo X library bus, 7.5 ton capacity, 30 foot long with a 26 foot body or something. So it's colossal, and it's essentially going to be a home away from home with car storage in it. So we can take the rally car or the race car or Binky or whatever in the back and have essentially a hotel room with a shower and toilet and all stuff, and bunks and for all of us, including the kids. So that's the plan.
No doubt with Nick's attention to detail, it's going to be crazy.
Oh my God, you don't know the half of it. And if I was going to tell you, you'd think you'd tell us we were mad. You probably already realised that, but yes, it is.
I think the whole world knows it, mate.
Yes. But yes, we got some. We've got some fantastic sponsors on that. A company called Energy Solutions in the UK. They're Victron agents, and they're really big on off-grid stuff.
Right.
And they've come on board and they've supplied us with some terrific lithium batteries, inverters. So we're going to be full-on off-grid. It's going to be brilliant. It's going to be amazing.
Brilliant stuff. So it's the camper van with the towing capacity and the carrying capacity.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Well, I think I've exhausted my list. I'm just such a fanboy. I would chew your ear off forever.
Oh, that's okay.
But I know you've got twins to get back to.
Oh no, they're at school, so it's all that. They're fine. It's 5 to 11 in the morning here, so I'm fine for them. Yeah.
So what is the future then for? Firstly, Project Binky comes to a close. That's finished. Escargot comes to a close. You've got that done. Bad Obsession Motorsport going to have another project vehicle there somewhere.
If you saw the shed, then you'd realise that we have more projects already in the shed than we've got life left for.
Right, sounds like my garage. Oops.
There's the Rover, what we call the Rover, which is the MG X-Power SVR shell that we bought for because it was there, and it was carbon fibre, and there was one of 82, 84? I can't remember. There's not many, but we've got one of them. So we're still collecting bits on that. That's definitely going to go ahead because we want to do it. The rally car... The next project changes from week to week because we always want to do something different. So we've got the MG, we've got the rally car. We want to go back rallying again, but that might not end up being the Persia. That might be something else. We've got a little plan for. We've got there's a lovely old vehicle upstairs. In fact, there's 2 or 3 upstairs. There's an Anglia that we need to put together. There's an old Datsun that we've got that needs putting together. We got some lovely stuff. So we've got enough projects as it is, but we're always on the lookout for more because you can't help yourself. Can you?
Did you want to go back and stay with the classic themes, such with the Anglia, or did you want to focus on something that's more modern, as the newer, the post chrome and stainless era?
Well, I don't know. Modern, as in, I don't like modern cars very much.
Post 74 to me is modern, really.
Post 74.
Yeah, post 74. When we started to lose all the chrome, we started to lose all the We went to big on emission controls. We a lot of electronics, a lot of velour started to enter the scene.
I quite like a bit of velour. I think it's underrated as a,
yes, well,
as a material.
I think I should change the subject now because it's starting to make me feel a bit queasy.
Oh, come on. Maroon
velour.
Maroon velour, come on. You know it makes in a Mercedes, in like a 230 or something like that, with the maroon velour. Oh, my God, what could be better?
No, I wanted to ask about the YouTube side of things with trolls. How do you go about that? Do you just ignore that?
It depends on how I'm feeling.
Okay.
It's awfully easy, and anybody with a YouTube channel will tell you this because I think it happens to everybody. That's certainly got a reasonable standing and a reasonable amount of views. You get people who just delight in needling you, and you either just ignore them, which is the most sensible thing to do, because it's so easy to ignore all the thousands and lovely, lovely comments that we get and focus on the half dozen or so that just are unnecessary. So the right thing to do is completely ignore them because they're idiots. They've got nothing better to do than try and belittle something that other people enjoy. I tend to try and give it back to them. And engage them and just, not all the time.
This sounds like sport for me, I think.
It can be. And it's like, and often what will happen is they'll get all Billy Big Bollocks when they're on the keyboard, it is. And then when they get me coming back to them, they're like, oh no, sorry, I didn't mean it like that. No, what I really mean, oh, nice, no, thanks very much. No, I appreciate you coming back to me on that. Yeah, no, I didn't think of it like that. Yeah, piss off, mate.
Billy Big Bollocks.
Yeah. That's what happens, isn't it? Yeah. When they get all like that, don't they?
Do you find your fans would just stick up for you most of the time, though?
But it's completely self-policing, so I don't need to. Yeah, I basically do need to do nothing, because genuinely, our fans are the best. Yep. We meet them all the time, and they're just so interested and so lovely, and they're so involved in it, and they know even more than we do about it, because once episode 28's gone out, I've basically forgotten it. I'm on to the next one.
And they've watched it.
They've watched it 3 or 4 times
again. So
if not, yeah. So they really are fab. I can't begin to tell you how lovely it is when you get those comments that come through, and people like yourselves who take an interest. And it's like this is insane. This is insane. I can't believe it. Even now, nearly 10 years later, and it just doesn't stop.
It's not got stale. It is so relevant. It is so current. It is so the fact that you've taken. No, what year is the Mini?
1980.
1980.
So it's 42 years old.
Right, 1980. Okay.
It's nearly as old as me.
Yeah. I have a 69 Mini K. Have you heard of the Mini K in England?
No.
No.
Not Mini.
Is it true, Jade? You would know. Does the K stand for?
Oh, look, I think that might be a furphy. But the Mini K was brought out. They built a range just for the Australian market, and complete knockdown kits. But one thing they did do for the Australian market, for the Australian police force, the New South Wales Police Force ordered the very last 1275 GTs as police pursuit cars. And so the very last 1275 GTs came to Australia as police cars. And they were just rockets, shooting down the freeway with, at the time, very lax speed limits. You could sit on the tail of a Falcon GTHO Phase 3 doing 144 miles per hour, and then by the time we went to take a corner, you'd be on top of it.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Yeah.
What was that New Zealand film? That was a fantastic New Zealand film from like the 80s or something, and there's a police chase between a Kingswood and a Mini. Do you remember that one? all through. I can't remember what that one's called. That's a real
Okay.
cult classic.
Oh, we might
Just
have to
dig
do
that
a
one
cult
back out.
classic movie video Tales from the Top night.
There you go.
Interviewing directors of shows.
Yeah. Stuff that nobody's seen ever. They're that culty that like nobody's ever seen them. It's like
It's just
Yeah.
three
Tales
people.
from the Top is a real cult show because we've only got 3 listeners. And Richard, you're the third one.
well, hey, it's growing then. You're 50% more.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, there's one thing that I loved about being what's the word I'm looking for? As known as we are. When we did Bargain Raceman, you watched the Citroen series.
Yep.
You've watched part
Yeah.
of the Citroen series.
I have, not all of it. Yeah.
The idea behind that was, and okay, the beginning of it, all about sim racing, was just a conceit for us to go racing, really. But essentially, it's true. But we got such good help from the BRSCC. They totally bought into. They knew what we were about. They'd seen Binky, this, that, and the other. They totally bought into what was going on, and because of that series, my love for motor racing and Nick's love for motor racing is such that anything we can do to help people get into motor racing and to demystify going racing, which is why when you watch the series, we didn't hide any costs at all. Everything that we spent, or everything that was not necessarily what we spent, but everything that would have cost that had you done it was in there. The racing gear, everything, the license fees, the entry fees, everything. So when you went to your wife and said, "Look, I need $8,000 to go racing," but it's not going to cost us anymore because here's
the evidence.
That's what it is.
Proof.
There's the proof. When we went to that was the
It's all here, including the glue and the paint.
exactly 2020. So that was the crazy mad lockdown thing. 2021 was the first year of the actual series, and when Nick and I went to the first round at Donington Park as guests of the BRSCC, there were 38 cars on the grid.
Yeah.
And we walked through the paddock, and everybody went, "This is your fault, Brunning. This is your fault." And that is exactly what I wanted.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. And so do you do more philanthropic stuff? Because I think that the car was... tell us what happened with the car at the end of it. Because I've seen the thing through to the through.
Well, the original plan was for the car to be raced at the Race of Remembrance in November 2020. And we were going to give it to Mission Motorsport, one of our very favourite charities and friends of ours, for them to race the following year. Now, because of the mad COVID nutbag completely insanity, the Welsh decided to close down again in November, so the race didn't go ahead. So
The Welsh.
So what we did is we went down to
I think there was a leak about that in the
Thruxton.
paper, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah. We went down to Thruxton to give the car to Mission Motorsport at their at their remembrance service instead. So we gave that away to charity, and then the following year they invited us back to race it. So last November we went to Anglesey to actually to do the Race of Remembrance in the car with some ex-service personnel and somebody who paid to be with us, and it was it was absolutely amazing. What an event.
Yeah, that must give you quite a thrill, the philanthropic aspect of it. Is there more that you do with Mission Motorsport? More that you plan to do in the future?
we've done we've produced some videos for them. We in the background it's always bubbling along, and so yeah, we've got some more plans to do stuff with them. They're a wonderful charity with wonderful people, and Jim Cameron, who's the boss of Mission Motorsport, he's a proper hero. He's a proper hero. And he loves his motor racing. So, and he's got 2 Porsches, 2 old 70s Porsches, and a 19. Hang on, 19 was it 100 years old? So it's 1921 Dodge Town Car, sitting in his garage. So we've got some interesting stories. You might have seen some of the BOM Classics videos we've done as well with Ben, who's been filming those.
How come you've... I was going to ask about that. How come you've chosen not to be interviewing them on the show? You've kind of removed yourself from it.
Because everybody does that. And what we wanted to do was let the car and the person tell the story.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do it very slow, because Petrolicious and Carfection and all that sort of stuff, they get involved. And all I just do is I just introduce it, and the rest is done by the car and the person. So it's quite hard to find the stories, because it's easy enough if it was me talking about something, because, you know, I can do that. But to find the right people and the right car is not dead straightforward. So there's not many of them, but they're all coming. But we love doing them, because it's just a really cool thing to do.
Look, I've been watching that.
Yeah, I just watched the Imposter one. That was great.
Cool, that, isn't it? Yeah, really nice bloke.
I can see that evolving. That's very much like the Petrolicious style, in that it takes the third person out of it. The third person is obviously sitting opposite the guest, having the questions, having the conversation, and you're capturing their responses, and it gives it some passion, it gives it some depth, and it takes all the recording out of it. The scripting out of it, and I think that's where what you've done has an artistic. It's almost art cinema, and celebrating the art of the car and the passion, and distilling it, and not having all of the distractions around it that you might get from a normal interview.
Well, again, it's doing something slightly differently. So with the way that we do the project stuff, it's very slightly different to other people do, and with the way that we wanted to shoot the BOM Classics was slightly different to other people were doing it. We're trying to give space for that to breathe, and for the car and the people to be the story, and not the interviewer. Yeah. Which is why I have very little to do with it.
No, it looks great. It's quite nice.
Do you have a few more of those lined up?
We do, yeah. We've got a couple of racing videos coming as well. I raced a BMW 1 Series back in May, and we've got that coming up soon. That's Snetterton. That's BRSCC's new car that they want to develop. We've been helping them develop that car. I was supposed to be racing it this Sunday, but they've benched me for somebody who wants to buy one instead, so that was really annoying. So that's somewhat irksome. Let me say that.
It certainly does look like crazy cheap racing. The little Citroen, when you I think you were doing the rear brakes when I was watching the last one, and it was like £40 or something for replacing the entire brake assembly.
Well, you got to bear in mind that the Citroen C1, the Peugeot 107, and the Toyota Aygo are all the same car. Yeah. So there are literally gazillions of them everywhere. So
brilliant. So smart.
So from that point of view, the parts are like dirt cheap. Dirt cheap.
That's exactly what you need in an accessible.
We have a similar
race
series here in Australia with it was the Hyundai race series using the I can't remember the model. I think it's older than that. I think it's the XL, something like that. I'm not a big modern car person. If it's sort of pre-74 is about my cutoff for the sort of stuff I'm interested in, and that's a really great race series. It's exactly the same thing. It was you grab something that is if something breaks, simply walking around the back streets of ordinary suburbs for about 10 minutes will yield all the spare parts lying in the gutter waiting to be picked up by the dustman. So so there's plenty of stuff around for those.
We've lost Lee.
Oh, well, I'm lost without Lee. Oh, he's like my handler. I know where to go from.
He's not your pimp, is he? I'm not sure.
Like I said, this is a family show. So tell me, well, whilst we're waiting for Lee to come back, kids in motorsport, what a good thing?
In what
Getting
sense?
kids into motorsport at an early age, whether it's karting, and they're helping to adjust them culturally and socially, giving them something new, something else to focus on that doesn't include a screen and buttons.
Gosh, yes. Almost anything really that doesn't involve a screen and buttons, quite frankly. But it's if you're into horses, you'll take them horse to. If you're into sailing, you'll take them on. If you're into football, you'll do the football thing. But motor racing, it's quite a social thing, and I don't know whether this is true of other pursuits, but I do find that the people around motor racing are a certain type, and they can be they're very welcoming, generally speaking. They're extraordinarily helpful. If people are in trouble, if there's a crash, they'll just rally around and they'll get it done, and it almost doesn't. So the teamwork ethic, but also the colossal amount of ribbing and banter and stuff that goes around. And I think that's important for kids to see that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're being nasty with someone.
No, it's very much the same. We have this good-natured banter of interrelationships, and that's it.
So you're totally the more the merrier, the more the merrier. So but it's one of those things that, especially my kids are 7, as I say, so they get bored quite easily. So spending a whole day at a racetrack for daddy to do 20 minutes here and 20 minutes there can be quite boring. So maybe we're just trying to ease them into it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to go. I think that there are many programs around Australia, and I know in the US as well, that incorporate get young kids into motorsport to give them an understanding of handling motor racing, social inclusion, and with partly with a view to helping them negotiate the roads when they get their driving licenses.
Well, it's one of those things. When I've been racing. I've been very lucky. Been very, very lucky to have been racing since I was 12. So it's one of those things that I've never felt the need necessarily to go crazy on the road, because my outlet was always the racetrack. Now I know that's extremely that's unusual. I'm very, very lucky. I get that. But at the same time, it definitely meant that I was a safer road driver because of it.
Okay.
Whereabouts are you guys, by the way?
I'm in Adelaide.
You're in Adelaide.
Yep, I'm in Adelaide as well, up in the hills.
Right, okay. So you're not too far away from each other.
We're only sort of 50 minutes apart. And I think now you're some distance away from Nick, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm sat in my my office in my house in Bedfordshire.
Okay.
And the shed and Nick is 120 miles northwest of here.
That's a long drive every morning.
It's not every morning. So the way that works is I go up on a Monday morning and I come back. I stay 2 nights with them, and leave Sarah with the kids for a couple of nights, and then come back on a Wednesday night. So I spend 3 days at the shed working on the bits and pieces, and then a couple of days editing and doing all the business stuff back here, which is that's my work life.
Well, it sounds like a fairly grand life. Look, Richard, it's been absolutely thrilling having you on Tales on the Top. We really appreciate your time, and we'd love to have you back again on another occasion. If you have any big announcements you want to make, or anything you want to tell us about before we finish for the day.
Announcements. I'd love to be able to tell you when the next episode's going to be, but I don't know.
I've deliberately not asked you that question.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I did notice. So no, I have absolutely no idea. We are working on it though. I promise. We have not been. You've not been idle. Slacking. No. It's been extremely frustrating for us, as it has been for everybody else, and I genuinely get it. I do. We're at the Historic Rally Festival in Telford in October. I think that's the 15th or 16th. That's going to be kind of fun. We were supposed to be at Donington this weekend, but we're not. And other than that, I haven't got anything, I'm afraid. I'm a bit rubbish. Sorry.
Look, we'll forgive you. It's been a long episode. So for those people those of our listeners who have not seen the show, if you could just tell us the address where they can find out more about the show and where they can start watching episodes.
I suppose the first port of call is our website, badobsessionmotorsport.co.uk. But all the shows are on YouTube, and just search Bad Obsession Motorsport or Project Binky. You'll find us there. Start at episode 1,
And binge.
I guess. That's probably the
Binky
best place to start. But I can't watch the first few episodes because they are awful. So they do get better.
No, I understand. Richard Brunning, thank you so much for joining us. And please pass our very best on to Nick when you see him from the Tales from the Top guys. And we look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Oh, we look forward to having you down in Australia.
Yes, I can't wait to come. And thank you both for inviting me. And I've enjoyed it very much. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Richard. You take care.
Okay.
Take care. All the best.
Thanks for listening to the show. Be sure to follow us so you don't miss out on our next episode. And if you like what we do, please take a minute to give us a rating or review. If you'd like to find out more about Kyron Audio or Devison Design and how we can create bespoke luxury environments and experiences in your life, you're more than welcome to book a call with one of our principals through our websites, kyronaudio.com.au or devisondesign.com.au, or follow us on our socials. Links are in the description. And we will be back soon with another episode to discover more tales from the top.